What's going on, everybody out there checking this video out? I thank you for watching. This is going to be a probably under 10-minute video about Bellator MMA, Bellator 149. It's on Spike TV, if you didn't know. Bellator 149 this Friday night on Spike TV. I'm going to predict two of the fights. I don't know the other fights, and I don't really care. I'm just talking about the two main fights. Probably everybody will be watching Spike and Bellator 149 for. First, I'm going to talk about Shamrock against Gracie. Royce Gracie, the legend, the MMA pioneer. Ken Shamrock, also legend, MMA pioneer. Him and Royce Gracie fought at the very first UFC pay-per-view back in 1993, I believe, in October of 93. They fought each other. It was back then UFC, the early days of UFC, there were no rules, but I don't think you could eye gouge or scratch your opponent. Anyways, if you watch UFC back in the day or seen old UFC pay-per-views, you know they promoted themselves as having no rules. Anything goes. But again, I don't think you could kick in the groin or eye gouge, scratch someone's eyes. Anyways, UFC won the early UFCs probably up until till after UFC, I don't know, 20 or 30. Then they stopped the tournament style. All the UFCs before then, the very early UFCs from UFC 1 until I think 20 something were all tournaments. Whoever could win the tournament would be the UFC champion at the end of the pay-per-view. They had to go through a tournament. So it was tournament style. Ken Shamrock, I believe, defeated his first opponent at UFC 1. It was this boxer that I think that was the only skill he had. He was a boxer. He was stepping in the cage and he wore one boxing glove on his hand. Why? I don't fucking know why, but the guy did. He decided to step in the cage with Ken Shamrock, who was a submission specialist. Ken Shamrock had a huge career in fighting in Japan before he came to UFC. So, this guy was wearing one boxing glove. I don't know why the hell you would do that, because you couldn't grab your opponent. How are you going to grab your opponent when you're wearing one boxing glove? That is stupid as fuck. Anyways, Ken Shamrock defeated him. Or maybe Ken Shamrock didn't fight that guy with the one boxing glove. But I do remember at UFC 1, some boxer fought and he wore one boxing glove, which was so stupid. Maybe he didn't fight Shamrock. I think this other fighter, his name was Pat Smith. I think he fought Ken at UFC 1 and lost by ankle lock, and the guy to tap out because Shamrock was about to break his ankle. So, then Royce Gracie and Shamrock fought at UFC 1. Royce Gracie didn't have to do that much. All I really remember about the fight, because I haven't watched it in a couple years, probably over 10 years, Royce Gracie would like to lay on top of his opponents a lot and just lay there and try to do submissions, grab an arm, do an arm bar, or stuff like that. So that's what I remember about the fight. I don't remember exactly how Ken Shamrock lost. I just don't. Anyways, Royce Gracie ended up winning UFC 1. the tournament, and he won UFC 2, I believe. I think. And I think even won UFC 3, which Ken Shamrock, I think, was in the tournament at UFC 3. I think he was, but he might have got injured and had to be taken out of the tournament, so he couldn't go to the finals. Anyways, I think at UFC 4, this is going back a long time. UFC 4 was probably in 94. So I don't really remember which UFC that Shamrock and Gracie met for the second time. I just don't remember, but I know they met for a second time. Shamrock beat up Gracie pretty good. Got a lot of big right hands in on him and rocked Gracie while he was laying on the ground. Shamrock was on top of him, grounding and pounding him. But Gracie still won. Somehow, I don't remember how he won. And then, so they fought twice. Shamrock and Gracie have fought twice. This is their third fight. And this time, it's like 22 years later since their last fight. I think they fought in 94, so it's 2016. And Shamrock is getting ready to fight Royce Gracie on Spike TV this Friday. And one night away. Not 2 nights, 1 night away. Because today's Thursday. So on Spike TV, Friday night, 8 p.m. it starts. Or wherever you live, maybe it starts at 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. Where I live, it's starting at 8 p.m. Shamrock Gracie 3. Both of these guys, Shamrock and Gracie, I respect both of them as fighters. I was always a bigger Ken Shamrock fan than Gracie fan, because Shamrock came over to the WWF and started pro wrestling and got into pro wrestling. Had a pretty damn successful pro wrestling career. Shamrock, former Intercontinental Champion in the WWF and NWA World Champion when he was part of TNA in 2002. So, it's 2016. I have no clue who's going to win this fight. Both guys, I believe, are over 50 years old. I'm pretty sure Shamrock is, I think, 51. Maybe he's late 40s, but I think he's 50. And I'm pretty sure Royce Gracie is 50 also, or over 50. I don't have a clue who's going to win. I would like Ken Shamrock to win, because he needs a win. His last fight, and some say he shouldn't, some say Shamrock, Gracie shouldn't even be fighting anymore. I agree, but it's going to happen, and I'm interested enough to watch it, because I want to see what's going to happen. But the last fight, Ken Shamrock got knocked out, fell down to the mat, and the ref stopped the fight, got knocked out basically by Kimbo Slice. So Shamrock lost his last fight in Bellator. So Shamrock, he needs a win. If he doesn't win, he should retire from the cage and from MMA. Royce Gracie hasn't fought in the cage in, I think, over 20 years. Very long time. But he fought in UFC. I think at some UFC pay-per-view where he went up against Matt Hughes. I think he went up against Matt Hughes. And I think Royce Gracie might have lost to a long-time reigning, whatever he was, light heavyweight champion. Matt Hughes, I believe, defeated Royce Gracie when they fought at a UFC pay-per-view, I think in 2006 or 5 or something like that, or 7, I don't know. Or maybe 2003, I don't remember. But Royce Gracie did fight after the year 2000, so not that long ago, and I'm sure he still trains in the gym, probably every week. He's been training and getting ready to fight Ken. Royce Gracie really, if you've seen the interviews on Spike TV, he would put on a show promoting Bellator, 149 promoting Shamrock, Gracie. They did interviews with both guys. Gracie really seems like he hates Ken and wants to beat the hell out of him and make him lose and shut Shamrock up. Gracie really seems like he doesn't respect Ken or like him. Same goes for Ken. He doesn't like Royce Gracie and wants to beat his ass and shut him up. I don't know who's going to win. I'm not going to try to guess. Well, I'm going to try to guess because I want to be doing this video. These are my Bellator 149 predictions. My guess is this fight between Shamrock and Gracie will not last over 2 rounds. It's going to end before the 2 rounds is over. It will end, and I want to say Ken Shamrock. I'm gonna go with Ken Shamrock because I'm more of a fan of his. I want to see the guy do well and win a fight. Anyways, it won't go 2 rounds, I don't think. I'm really interested and curious to see how this fight is gonna go because both guys are pretty old, but they're both in great shape. Ken Shamrock still looks pretty jacked. Royce Gracie, I'm sure, is still in great shape. So it will be I'm pretty excited to watch this fight Friday night in 1 night away. So I'm going with Ken Shamrock to win. I don't think by knockout, probably by submission, but I could be wrong. Next fight, I'm going to predict. The only fight I really care about is Shamrock, Gracie, and this next fight. The other fights on the card, I'm sure they'll be good. I'm sure they'll be entertaining, and some might be really good with some great knockouts in them. But I'm watching Bellator 149 for Shamrock, Gracie, and Kimbo Slice and his opponent. So now I'm going to predict Kimbo Slice and Dada, whatever his name is. I don't know if that's how you say it. I don't really care. Dada 5000. This guy used to be in a crew with Kimbo Slice. He used to hang around Kimbo, like he would follow around Kimbo Slice like a little puppy. Well, now this guy became an MMA fighter. I guess started winning fights. I never followed Dada, so I don't know what his record is. But I think Kimbo Slice, the guy really wants to hurt this Dada. Kimbo said he doesn't know if he wants to break his ribs first or break his jaw. So I'm interested to see this fight. I'm going to go with Kimbo Slice because I like the guy more. And he has some pretty powerful punches. If he connects, he'll probably knock the guy out. But maybe Dada 5000, maybe he can knock people out too. I don't know. I haven't seen his fights. We all know how Kimbo Slice started. The guy was doing backyard fights, street fights basically, in Florida. And he became a YouTube sensation. I mean, a ton of people watch his fights on YouTube. So then he got discovered. And Kimbo Slice was hired and brought into MMA and signed by Strikeforce, former MMA company that I believe UFC bought Strikeforce because they were going under. So Kimbo was hired by Strikeforce, and he got to fight in the UFC, and he was on the Ultimate Fighter, and then he got on UFC, and I think he lost on UFC pay-per-view. So then he left UFC, got a deal with Bellator, and he's beaten Ken Shamrock and probably beat someone else in Bellator. I don't know who else. But I did see Kimbo defeat Ken Shamrock. And that was depressing. Watching that fight, seeing Ken Shamrock get knocked out, fall to the mat, that was just, to me, watching that was very sad and depressing. To see Shamrock, a guy when I was growing up in the Attitude Era, as a teenager, I was a big Ken Shamrock fan. So seeing him get knocked out, I think in 2015, that fight was. Seeing him get knocked out, that is very sad to watch. So I'm going with Kimbo Slice to win. That fight will probably go under 2 rounds, my guess is. And I'm picking Ken Shamrock in that fight with Royce. Gracie will probably not last 2 rounds. So enjoy Bellator on Spike TV if you're watching. It's Friday night, tomorrow night. I'll be watching. I'll be live tweeting it. Follow me on Twitter at TNAWWE Guy and at NXTWWE Guy. Enjoy Bellator, MMA 149. If you're watching it, enjoy it. I will enjoy it. Bye for now, everybody.